From the outside, Charles Oliveira's story seems like a fairy tale, the kind of rise that Hollywood scripts are made of. A young man from the poorest corners of Brazil who clawed his way out of poverty to become one of the most electrifying UFC champions of all time. But what fans often forget is that behind every triumphant smile, behind every arm raised in victory, there was unimaginable pain. This is not just the story of a fighter. It's the story of a boy who refused to quit, no matter how many times life tried to break him. This is the untold story of Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira. Charles was born in 1989 in Guarujá, São Paulo, Brazil, a place of beauty shadowed by hardship. The neighborhood he grew up in, known as Vila das Palmeiras, was steeped in poverty. Many kids his age never made it out, not because they lacked talent, but because life was merciless. His family had very little. His mother worked tirelessly just to keep food on the table. His father picked up any job he could find, construction, cleaning, anything. And Charles, even as a boy, saw their struggle and felt an enormous weight on his shoulders. At age 7, he was diagnosed with rheumatic fever and a heart murmur. The doctors told him he might never play sports again. For most kids, that would have been the end. But for Charles, it was the beginning of something else, a war within himself. He refused to accept that his body would limit his dreams. He spent months recovering, learning to push through pain, teaching himself that every step forward, no matter how small, was a victory. When he discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at around 12 years old, everything changed. The first time he walked into a local gym, barefoot, shy, and unsure, he was laughed at by some kids. But the coaches quickly realized there was something different about him. He absorbed every lesson like a sponge, spending hours watching others, repeating techniques again and again until they became second nature. His family couldn't afford proper uniforms, so he'd borrow digs from older kids or train in street clothes. But he didn't care. He was chasing something greater. As he grew older, Charles began to dominate local competitions. His ground game was fluid, his submissions lightning fast. He earned his nickname "Do Bronx," a term locals used for those who came from the roughest neighborhoods. It became a symbol of pride. Every time he stepped into a ring, he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for every kid from the favelas who had been told that success was impossible. But the path to greatness was not smooth. Even as he built a reputation as a young prodigy, Charles faced constant financial struggles. There were days he went hungry after training. Sometimes he couldn't afford the bus ride to the gym, so he walked for miles in the heat. There were times his family told him to quit and find a job to help at home. But his coaches, recognizing the rare spark in him, refused to let that happen. They often paid for his transportation, his food, even his tournament fees. In their eyes, this kid from Guarujá was destined for something special. When the UFC came calling in 2010, Charles was just 20 years old, wide-eyed, humble, and hungry. His debut was nothing short of spectacular. A stunning submission victory that had the MMA world buzzing. Brazil had found its next star, or so everyone thought. But the bright lights of the UFC are unforgiving. After a few early wins, Charles hit a wall. He started losing, badly. Knockouts, submission defeats, missed weight cuts. His confidence shattered. Fans and analysts began labeling him as weak-minded. He quits under pressure, they said. He's talented, but he doesn't have the heart. Those words cut deep. What they didn't see were the tears behind closed doors, a young man questioning everything, trying to understand how his dream was slipping away. He battled injuries, depression, and the crushing expectation of carrying the pride of Brazil on his shoulders. But Charles Oliveira is built differently. Where others might have walked away, he chose to rebuild. Around 2016, something clicked. He changed training camps, surrounded himself with people who believed in him unconditionally, and slowly began rediscovering his identity. He started approaching fights with calmness, not desperation. He focused on evolving his striking, adding layers to his game that surprised everyone. And then came his resurgence. Between 2018 and 2021, Oliveira went on one of the greatest winning streaks in UFC lightweight history. He finished fighter after fighter, each victory more dominant than the last. Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler. The world was forced to take notice. Bronx was no longer the kid who couldn't handle the pressure. He was the man who thrived in it. The night he fought Michael Chandler for the vacant lightweight title will forever be etched in UFC history. Round 1, Charles was nearly finished. Chandler landed heavy punches, and for a moment, it looked like the doubters were right again. But between rounds, something remarkable happened. Charles sat in his corner, calm, eyes burning with determination. He stood up for round 2 and within seconds landed a perfect left hook. Chandler dropped. The crowd exploded. Bronx pounced, and the referee stopped the fight. Charles Oliveira, the boy from the slums of Brazil, was now the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world. As lágrimas fluíram pelo seu rosto, ele gritou, "Vocês duvidaram de mim! You all doubted me." That wasn't arrogance. It was relief, release, vindication. A lifetime of struggle condensed into one victorious moment. His championship reign was defined by chaos and courage. He defended his title against Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, both wars, both victories that showcased his unbreakable spirit. Even when he lost the belt on the scale in controversial fashion before UFC 274, he refused to crumble. "The belt is still mine," he said, and then went out and proved it by dismantling another opponent. Outside the cage, Charles remains the same humble man he's always been. He still lives near Guarujá, helps rebuild local gyms, funds school programs, and gives back to his community. He frequently visits sick children, donates food, and provides financial support to families in need. Fame never changed him. If anything, it made him more determined to serve others. What makes Charles Oliveira's story so powerful is not just his skill, it's his heart. The same heart that once struggled to beat properly as a child is now the heartbeat of millions of fans who see themselves in his journey. He's living proof that no one is defined by their past, and that faith, humility, and perseverance can rewrite any destiny. And when the day finally comes for Charles Oliveira to hang up his gloves, he won't just be remembered as a champion. He'll be remembered as a symbol of hope. A reminder that greatness is not about how many times you fall, but how many times you rise. His story will live far beyond the Octagon, inspiring generations to come. Charles Oliveira didn't just silence his critics, he silenced doubt itself. From a barefoot boy in the favelas to a global icon, his journey reminds the world that pain doesn't destroy you, it refines you. And in the end, Bronx didn't just win fights. He won the respect of the world.